Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to another edition of We Are SC's Inside the Trojans Huddle. Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion with We Are SC columnists and staff writers. We start with the pregame show, where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle and give you the latest USC Trojans football news. First, let's meet this week's panelists. Marc Kulkin, We Are SC columnist who writes the Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways, in addition to regular season practice reports of football and basketball. Chris Arledge, former William Jewell College DB and team captain, and We Are SC columnist who writes the popular column Musings with Arledge. Kevin Bruce, former all-conference linebacker and team captain for the 1975 USC Trojans. He's a We Are SC columnist who writes the defensively and offensively speaking after every USC football game. And Greg Katz, that's me, your host and moderator of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and a weekly We Are SC columnist who writes the obvious and not so obvious and IMHO Sunday. Well, before we kick off our special edition this week, here is the latest USC football news. A large contingency of blue chippers from the recruiting class of 2022, 23 and 24, along with some of the cream of the crop from around the country, were on campus this weekend for what was billed as Junior Day. Among the notables from the surging class of 223 were local players like Los Alamitos quarterback Malachi Nelson and receiver Makai Lemon. From Bellflower, California, St. John Bosco two-way star Mateo Ugalele and San Diego running back Brian Jackson. In addition, there were out-of-staters like Florida running back Cedric Baxter, Washington defensive lineman Jaden Wayne and corner Caleb Presley, Connecticut offensive lineman Olis Alinen, and Utah edge rusher Hunter Craig, in addition to Hawaii linebacker Deanna Lefau and Nevada edge rusher Kelsey Howard. And 5 former Trojans participated in some shape or form at this past week's NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Drake London did not participate physically, but part in the interview sessions. London is expected to participate in his own private workout outside of USC's upcoming pro day. Those Trojans that did work out included Drake Jackson, Deontay Ingram, Chris Steele, and Isaac Taylor Stewart. And key backup quarterback Mo Hasan, the former Vanderbilt transfer, was coming off of a major ACL injury suffered during last spring's ball, announced he ruptured his right Achilles tendon that required surgery. It leaves the Trojans, which has 2 scholarship quarterbacks for spring ball. Trojans have 2 walk-on quarterbacks in the class of 2022, Gage Roy and Keegan Patterson. And in a great public relations gesture last week, Trojans quarterback Caleb Williams, who has an NIL contract with Beats by Trey, handed out complimentary earphones to the USC women's basketball team. And finally, friends, We Are SC's Inside the Trojans Huddle greatly appreciates your viewer and listenership. We appreciate and encourage those of you watching on site, like YouTube, to click on the red subscriber button, and also a like would be greatly appreciated. And it's all free. So with that in mind, we've got the pregame show out of the way. It's time to turn to the first quarter. All right, kickoff time, first quarter question. Panel, what are the effects of losing backup quarterback Mo Hasan for spring practice and possibly the 2022 season due to a torn Achilles tendon? And what should Lincoln Riley do about it? As always, our leadoff hitter, Marc Kulkin, what should he do about it?
Well, I think you're going to see both Caleb and Miller Moss wrapped up in yellow caution tape. Behind them, you've got, I'm not sure, and no disrespect to the walk-ons who were on the squad last year, Brendan Costello, Brad Aoki, Isaac Ward. I don't know who is still available as far as eligibility, but, there's going to be some tired arms, number one, when you consider all the reps that have to be taken during spring camp. Who is the backup? When they have the Trojan Huddle, the showcase, whatever they're going to call it, you got to have another quarterback available. If you remember last year, when the roster was getting a little thin back there, I asked Dante, who's your emergency quarterback? And he didn't mention any of the walk-ons. He mentioned Joseph Manjack. and he's, back off, and he went to Houston. So there's a little bit of a situation. So as a result, long-winded, you're going to see a heavy emphasis on the run game this spring, which is fine. I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed that USC is learning how to play physical football in the spring. So if there's a positive out of the negative, there you go.
All right, let's move on to the El Capitan, Mr. Kevin Bruce. So you're Lincoln Riley. What do you do?
Yeah, it's got a problem, and not naming an emergency quarterback really is tells you how much issues that we have with depth. And let's face it, it's one play away. And it's not a cliche. That's truth. Everybody's one play away, and from next guy standing up. And we have had a history over the last several years of the backup quarterback stepping in, most often a freshman in their very first game or first adventure on the field as a I was going to say starter, but as the number one quarterback. So anyway, Lincoln Riley is going to have to go to the portal, see what he can come up with, and I'm sure they're doing that as we speak, frankly, and to come up with additional depth in the quarterback ranks.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's going to be able to help them this spring. You can't get anybody in that's going to help them this spring. That's the issue, I think, that as far as what's coming in the summer and so forth, that's coming.
Yeah, well, look, the spring ball is that's nice. So, you got enough guys to get to put a team on the field in practice. I'm more concerned about what happens after spring. So maybe I got my own question.
All right, I can see patiently waiting. The White Mamba is ready to strike, hopefully. Mr. Chris Arledge, you're Lincoln Riley. What are you doing about it?
I don't think I'm losing any sleep over it. Look, almost every football team, when you go from your starting quarterback to your backup quarterback, there's a drop off. And you go to your third string quarterback, you fall off a cliff. That's true of almost every football team since football was invented. If USC was going to be relying on Mo Hasan to win football games for it this year, we're already in a world of hurt. I don't want to take anything away from the kid. I know he has a nice podcast. He seems like a really bright kid, and he went to Vanderbilt before USC, so he probably is. But you're talking about a guy who didn't start at Vanderbilt, who came here as a walk-on. It's not like Caleb Williams went down with an injury. If that happened, then we'd all be in mourning. It's not what happened. In spring ball, they're going to have a current walk-on rather than a former walk-on taking however many snaps they have to take after Caleb Williams and Miller Moss have gotten the number of reps they need to get ready. Caleb Williams ain't going to throw any more footballs than he was before Mo went down. He'll throw exactly the number that Lincoln Riley thinks he needs. And some other walk-on will take additional snaps. Whatever. I feel terrible for him. This is the second year in a row that he's suffered a significant injury, and that is not fun. So I feel terrible for him. But if you're talking about this as something that's going to have a dramatic impact on the USC football program, it's not. It's just not. I wish the best for him. It's not going to affect the season.
All right. My comment on it, very simple. I think that it's not going to affect spring ball whatsoever. I think that, as I think Mark said, there'll be caution tape around both he and Miller Moss. It'll be good for some of the walk-ons that are there. I mean, really for spring ball, this spring ball especially, it's about making sure all the other positions understand what they're supposed to be doing. It's more of a teaching session. At the end for the spring game, nobody's going to touch Caleb Williams. Nobody's going to touch Miller Moss. The big question is, what type of quarterback will come out of the portal that is willing to be a third stringer, or believe the best I could do is maybe beat out Miller Moss, which isn't likely. But I say there's got to be some guy out there that wants to get his master's degree and said, hey, it'd be great going to SC, has a little bit of experience, and is willing to be a part of a new culture. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I think in the short term, it's not gonna, Chris, I can see you're leaning
Maybe
back.
JT Daniels. You think JT Daniels will come back and back everybody up? I mean, he hasn't been able to start anywhere else. Maybe he's going to jump right in and be a backup at USC again.
Oh no, he started. He's just started for Clay Helton.
Yeah, well, until yeah.
Could you imagine if he stayed in Georgia at Southern? Wow. I'm not hearing any other landing spots right now. It's interesting.
Well, look, let's be honest. The guy that he was supposed to beat out at Georgia played pretty well, but he had an unbelievable collection of talent around it. Stetson Williams or Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett's not going to be a high draft choice. Stetson Bennett is physically pretty average, and he couldn't beat him out. That says something. So I think that's our guy. I think JT Daniels is going to come back so he can be the emergency quarterback. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe he can wear that championship belt that Graham Harrell used to have him walking around in. That'd be awesome.
And we're missing a very important point. I believe he still has that USC tattoo on his leg.
Well, there you go.
What a beautiful ending that would be. That the tattoo has come full cycle. That would be very touching. And I'll pass out the Kleenex on that one.
We know he's not going to LSU. That's for sure.
No, but Jaden Daniels is. For those of you that didn't hear that news, Jaden Daniels from ASU has decided he's transferring over there with Brian Kelly at LSU. That'll be an interesting situation. But I'll tell you what's interesting. Going to the second quarter, because this is interesting. Panel, we start the second quarter with this. Last week, an email went out to parents of USC football players advising them that spring ball would be closed to them, to the players, parents. The action, according to an email obtained by We Are SC, says the decision to ban parents was a team vote. If parents are banned from practice, with the exception of the annual spring public game at the end of spring practice, it seems only a matter of time that announcement will be made regarding the same banishment for the general public. So we haven't heard anything yet about the media, but I got a feeling something is going to be going down there too. But the question for our distinguished panel is, was this a good idea to close spring practices to the parents of players and most likely the general public? Chris, is it a good idea?
Lincoln Riley has one job, and that's to win football games. There were parents that attended a lot of practices during Clay Helton's tenure. Didn't do us a whole lot of good. I mean, I'm sure if I were a parent, I'd want to have the ability to go see my son practice. I don't care. And I don't care whether the media gets in. I mean, Kulkin's been going to USC practices for years. It wasn't helping us any. You didn't contribute at all, Kulkin. We were still losing every week.
You're right.
You didn't help us.
Sorry.
But most programs are closed these days. Nick Saban's not letting people wander around. Ryan Day's not. Jim Harbaugh's not. Most of the coaches are. So what? His job is to win football games. If he wins football games, everybody's going to be happy. If he doesn't win football games, the fact that he lets parents watch crappy practices isn't going to make anybody happy. I don't care about this. It doesn't matter. And don't give me the Pete Carroll open things up, because he did, but Pete Carroll was an aberration, and Pete Carroll was doing that before these things came around, right? Before the smartphones. So what? It doesn't matter. Win football games. If he thinks keeping the parents away will make it so it's easier for the players to pay attention and for him to chew people out, then great, do it. Doesn't matter.
Well, let's move on to the great Marc Kulkin. Now, Marc, let's give Marc some credit here, because I did in my IMHO Sunday said, without having seen the email, but having cross-checked with sources, that this was going to happen with parents. And Marc was able to get apparently an email of it and had a wonderful column on it, giving his opinion. And I love some of the comments that you, I don't know if I would say, would you have Nurse Ratchet, Cratchit from whatever that movie was?
Bob Cratchit?
Yes, thank you very much, Chris. Our movie aficionado when he's not talking SC football. Marc, tell us about it for those that are not familiar with the letter. Apparently you've seen it. and what was your take, and what do you think about the whole idea?
Great. Well, as far as the email itself, the Trojan family, yada, 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 it's a narrative, and there's a lot to it. But it's funny when you see the email, and it's welcoming all the mid-season arrivals to the Trojan family. And then the narrative changes to, here's the spring schedule, and you can't come. It was just really ironic wording, just to see it. So, it's from some of the parents that I've spoken with, some love it, some hate it, some don't care, like Chris. I'm probably in the don't care category. However, I understand why Lincoln's doing it. Yeah, it was a team vote. Maybe it was one of those encouraged team votes. And it's for one of the, what Chris highlighted. There's going to be some come to Jesus moments this spring. And it's going to be a lot easier to do that without the parents there, and possibly even the media during parts of practice. I think is going to be the compromise. Because, yeah, I don't think Lincoln's into making friends. He's there to win games. And right now, there's going to be they're pushing the limits. They're going to see who wants to be there, who can handle it. So I understand why they're going this route. A lot of parents might not be able to deal with some of the culture change that's going to be happening.
Now, Kevin, you grew up in your SC football career with John McKay, and I'm familiar with it because I would go down to practice as a 17-year-old and 16-year-old. I was telling my girlfriend Sharon the other day, I can't even believe the things that I did. I would drive from high school when my season wasn't in play there, and I would literally, as stupid as this sounds, I would go and get on campus, walk over to Boulevard Field, and just watch them come out of the locker room and go into Boulevard Field. And then it was closed. And my claim to fame was John McKay must have really thought I was a nutcase, because one day he just turned to me and said, all right, he was letting a few people. And he says, and I looked at him and I didn't pay any attention. He says, okay, you get in too. I looked around like, who's he talking to? And he said, no, you. I said, me? He says, yeah, come on in here. You're here all the time. But the rub was they sat in wooden bleachers. It was also the baseball field. They practiced far away. You really couldn't see anything. And you were lucky if you didn't get a splinter sitting on those bleachers. But those were closed practices. Now, Kevin, I'm going to turn it to you. You were part of, I'm sure, closed practices as a player at a university that was really in its prime. What are your thoughts? And even if you had a son playing on the team, just how is it right, wrong, or does it indifferent?
Well, Coach told me later on that the reason he let you in is he just got back from Julie's and he didn't know who the hell you were, so he let you in.
Probably. Probably.
Look, spring ball, I'm in the I don't give a crap category. It's about making a better football team, and the head coach has been selected. Head coach makes the decisions. It's just less for guys like us to talk about now. Oh well, we'll get over that. There'll be a certain amount of information that we'll glean from it. As far as mom and dad coming to practice, because it's or others in the family. Either you let them all or you let none. And I think Mark has a point. I think there was an encourage to vote on this one. And I think the players are rightly saying, I think we're going to follow what head coach is thinking very clearly with respect to it. With regards to people on the field, look, there's always going to be an argument, good or bad. Me, if I'm head coach, I close the field. Maybe I do something to help recruiting, which is why it was shut down by the NCAA later on for Pete Carroll, because there's too many people there. That it was considered a recruiting inducement. I don't know if you guys know that one. So if and when that happens, then I'll take a different point of view that if it is a recruiting inducement and it's helpful in that regard, then by all means, go ahead, do it until someone told you not to. I can get and has the authority to do so. So other than that, look, it's about the guys on the field. It's about the coaching staff. It's about getting things done. You're installing a brand new defense. You're installing a brand new offense, and you're installing a bunch of coaches that haven't worked collectively together as in this particular group. There's a lot of ground to cover, and they don't need distractions.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that I feel sad for the parents, and I'll tell you why. In this era that we are in, these parents have been following many of these kids from Pop Warner, have been attending practice. They live and die with these kids. Many of them, and I've seen it for decades, they just come in, they open up a folding chair, they sit at the wall, they don't really say anything, they're just happy to be there, and it means a great deal to them. So I think that really, I feel bad for that, honestly. SC's coming off a horrendous period of public relations, from the administration to almost everything. And I think that Lincoln Riley has every right in the world to do what he thinks is best for his program. However, we know because of Pete Carroll, and yes, it's an anomaly, I agree, that it has nothing to do with whether you win or lose football games, because Pete proved you could. I think Mark mentioned in his article, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, it was like a concert, going to a concert. People were there.
Yeah, and his teams were no more disciplined or less disciplined than, Nick Saban's team. I put some numbers up there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. The old argument would be, well, if we have people in practice, we won't be able to practice well, or no. It's a comfort zone for the coach and his staff, and but I assume there'll be big attendance for the spring game because nobody else seen them. So good for that. And I believe, along with Arledge, that come on, in the end, who's going to remember who was able to come into spring ball in the middle of November? Nobody's going to care. Okay. But we've had some PR issues lately, and this just seemed like one that, had to be addressed. I don't like the idea that the team voted on it. I could just see some poor kid calling home and saying, "I'm sorry, Mom, you can't come in."
Well,
how did you
Greg,
vote?
Greg, I think that's actually really of everything that's been discussed. I think the most interesting point is that there was a vote. A head coach allowed the players to choose, and that's pretty interesting.
Well, it was the team leaders were, brought in to talk about this.
Who are okay?
Whatever on all that. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, we're splitting hairs here. We're splitting hairs. The team.
It's been represented. It's been represented. There was a team vote.
It is. The team made the decision.
The team. Well, okay. It's pretty unusual for a head coach to let a decision be made by the team. Period. On any matter.
Well,
so I thought that's really unusual.
Actually, Kevin, and I know this is probably going to piss off Chris too. Clay Helton did that quite a bit.
You make my point. Thank you for that one. You're exactly making my point. Loser coaches might make loser decisions. He's full of them.
Okay. But we're all agreeing that Lincoln should be making the final decision.
He chose to delegate that decision to the vote of the team. And that's his call. I think it's actually unusual.
Okay.
Reminds me of the old joke, admission is free, so pay at the door. Okay, it's pull up a chair and sit on the floor. But it's
was that a joke? Wait, Katz, was that do you have the whole joke or just the punchline? Because that wasn't funny.
Well, Chris, that you found it wasn't funny was apparently a good sign from my perspective.
Oh, because I don't recognize good jokes. Well, we'll let people make their comments on YouTube. If you thought that was a funny joke by Katz, just weigh in. I can't wait to see what people.
You know what Chris is going to do. He just can't wait.
Hey, I suggest we have a vote by all those that view the huddle on whether that was a funny joke or not. Okay, we'll go down the Democrat.
I can take it. If I get shut out 0-3, I have no problem with that.
Clay Helton probably thinks that's hilarious. That's probably
Clay Helton will probably call me and offer me a job. That's how I look at it. He'll probably
Yeah.
say, you know what, you could fit right into Georgia Southern right now. I like your bow chin and hair on your back or whatever he talks about. I don't. Let's get out of this. Can we please?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Horrible. All right, it's halftime. Now we can go back to our little regular halftime entertainment. So here it is, guys. It's halftime. So here's our question. What motivating entrance music or song would you like to hear being played as the Trojans leave their Coliseum locker room before kickoff, come walking down the tunnel, and run out onto the field before the start of the game? An example would be at Virginia Tech, when they leave the locker room, they come all the way to the field while Metallica is playing Enter the Sandman. Kevin, give us a song that you think, or maybe you don't think they should have a song. I don't know. But what would you like to see played to get the crowd fired up and so on and so forth? Anyone come to mind?
Yeah, this is in my wheelhouse. I tell you what, I don't need a song. Just let the horse run.
So you're old school. You just say, let's just
No, get the horse out there. I mean, the horse is cool. Traveler is always, the kids love it. It's a great sight. You know, if you want to put some music to it, do something, you know, with Fleetwood Mac, Tusk, I don't know, whatever.
All right. Now, Chris, what kind of music do you think would be appropriate to fire everyone up?
I don't know what's going to fire everyone up, but I think Virginia Tech is right to go with Metallica. I think they choose the wrong song. I think Seek and Destroy is the right Metallica song for this. That's exactly what I want our defense to be doing. Searching, seek, and destroy. That's my pick.
All right. So Chris says that'll get the crowd on its feet. People will be going nuts. Kulkin.
Only middle-aged white guys like me probably, but I would enjoy it. So I think we should do it.
Okay, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I can actually kind of get on board with Kevin's idea of having Traveler, run out to midfield, maybe have, Conquest blasting in the background if we're going to mix up some stuff in there. But, if we're going to choose some entrance music, and I actually put some thought in this because I'd like to see the team kind of adapt to the theatrics of ladies and gentlemen from Saliva. Welcome to the show. So if you get a chance, you can do a YouTube lookup, and the team it's just the perfect entrance music. In the past they had Eminem. I think this would be a nice hard rock, get the crowd going in the Metallica wheelhouse type of environment.
Now, do you guys think that it should be one song for the season, or do you think they should have different songs?
Yeah, I'm a one song type of guy.
Well, I'm a one horse guy, so I hope Traveler makes it through the season. But he's going to be running a lot because we're going to score a lot of points.
Hey, if Arkansas didn't kill him, nothing's going to kill Traveler.
Back-to-back years. Well, I guess
that's actually that's not a good one because this is Traveler 9. That was not Traveler 9.
Survived.
Win in advance. Okay, I think that actually, I thought about when they first started doing it. When I played ball, and I played predominantly basketball at the time, we would come out to Spencer Davis, Keep on Running. And we also there was another one that they did, which was High Energy. Another one was the Chambers Brothers, doing their thing. So I think it's got to be High Energy, whatever it is. I mean, I wasn't against Eminem because I got used to it, and there was kind of like an anticipation. Actually, I think Enter the Sandman is excellent. I was watching the YouTube the other day, thinking about this question, and I said, wow, that, it's a long walk, by the way, from the Virginia Tech locker room to their field. So there's a real build up there, but hopefully they will pick a song that everybody won't be going, oh, what did they pick that one for? That would have been the worst. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen. They think,
hey, I got an idea. Let's have a vote.
All right.
Let's let the parents choose since I can't. And you know what? You know what? If I were the parents, you know what I'd choose, Greg? I would choose a recording of you telling jokes. That's what I would choose.
You just can't let it go, can you?
think
Look
so.
how happy. Look how, you don't see Arledge this happy most of the time. Look at that guy. He's actually.
In fairness, most of the time you've known me, Clay Helton has been the football coach, so you can understand why I've been in such a mood.
You have been released. You are a new man.
I'm a new man. I see rainbows and sunshine. It's amazing.
Yes,
What are you,
I'm the
Louis-
negative dude.
Louis
on it.
Armstrong?
I'm the negative
Are you going to
person.
start singing What a Wonderful World?
Well, let's win some football games first.
Yeah.
But yes, I will serenade our audience with that song if we start to put together winning streak.
We're going to hold you to that one, buddy.
That's fine.
Do you have a good voice?
I mean, I can sing okay.
Oh, when
I can
Arledge
sing
says I can sing okay means he really can sing well. Well, we'll look forward to that. That'll be something. You can pick the song, by the way, that you want to sing for us. All right. I think that we have pretty much figured that one out. So before we move on to the third quarter, just a reminder as we begin the second half that you're watching or listening to WeRSC's Inside the Trojans Huddle. This week's WeRSC panelists are Marc Kulkin, Chris Arledge, Kevin Bruce, and I'm Greg Katz. We encourage you to check out WeRSC.com, part of the On3 network, and become a subscriber to the best coverage of USC football and Trojans athletics. And as a bonus for the curious, there is currently a free WeRSC 7-day free trial to view our exclusive On3 Plus content, which includes analysis, breaking stories, data for USC football and basketball, and stories that pertain to the balance of USC athletics. So we begin the second half kickoff and third quarter with this question. With all the spring attention being focused on the Trojans' concerns on offense and defense, are you concerned that special teams will be underemphasized in spring, especially with no specific special teams coach? Marc Kulkin, are you concerned?
No. Alex Sadhouse is more than capable of handling kickoff duties, field goal duties, point after attempts. And if USC is in a position where they need to recover an onside kick, he's also more than capable. I'm able to say that because I went to practice and I saw him do it, and I saw him do it very well. Now, does he have the leg of Parker Lewis? No, but he can consistently drive it through the back of the end zone and kickoffs. And you know what? If USC's kicking field goals of 45 plus yards, then we're probably questioning why is the offense stalling.
Okay. Are we ready to pass the baton? Kevin, your thoughts on the special teams? Are we underplaying it? Is it not important in the spring? What is it?
Yeah, no, it's important. I'm not sure you spent a lot of spring practice time on it. Frankly, I think the focus really needs to be installing the offense and defense, both of which are new. And I think, the more reps on that, the better off we are, full stop. With respect to how important special teams are, no, that I do wholeheartedly agree with. And it's more than just the kickers. It's the coverage, both punt coverage and kickoff coverage, and the return game. So those are, field position changers. Those are game momentum changers. We've had our share of those, usually in the wrong direction, regrettably. And so I think when fall comes around, that's really the time to zero in on the special teams. I will say this, that it's actually a very good conditioning tool to use for aerobic conditioning. Is kickoff coverage and having everybody cover. Get your best 11. Bang, they go. And then next group goes, and you got a full. A really good sprint situation. So it's a nice, a tool in that regard, frankly, to use during spring for conditioning purposes.
All right, Chris, not only are your thoughts, but what about not having a special teams coach? What do you think?
There are other programs that don't have special teams coaches, and they divide up the various special teams amongst the assistants. I don't have any reason to believe that Oklahoma was losing a lot of football games because of bad special teams, but I didn't research it. So it's possible that that happened and that they were, averaging 11 wins a year instead of 12 because of bad special teams play. I suspect that's not true. Lincoln Riley knows that special teams are important, and I'm sure they'll practice them adequately. What will really help the special teams is to have better football players on the field. Because whether you're talking about return guys or you're talking about coverage units, the more athletes you have, the more football players you have, the better off you are. And on a team where you have a lot of depth, where there are a lot of good football players in front of you, special teams are your opportunity to go down and show what you can do, run down and make a big hit. So I think that the number one thing that's going to help USC special teams is Lincoln Riley's recruiting. Because once we have a large number of guys who are fast, who can hit, who can really play football, you're going to see huge improvement in the special teams.
Real quick before Greg hits this point, Kevin, and I know the rules are way different when you were playing and probably a little bit different even when you were playing, Chris. The practices that I've gone through, been able to attend, there's not a lot of contact during special teams. I mean, there's a lot of sprinting downfield. But as far as, making that big hit that you were alluding to, Chris, that's not happening during practice, at least, today. Was it happening when you were practicing, Kevin, you, Chris?
Yeah, the ball was the same shape. Our special teams, we never had full contact, ever.
Yeah, same.
You don't do that. That's crazy time.
Same. It's too dangerous. So nobody does that. You teach people to stay in their lanes and the like on kickoff unit. You make sure your contained guys are keeping contained, but you're not going down and taking somebody's head off in practice.
Right. But there's very little wrapping up. I guess that's for the audience more so is, they think that, there's no physicality at the practices. Well, by rule, and you guys are explaining why you got to save yourselves for the season.
Well, I'll tell you, I am amused by this only because, for a while there, the big savior of special teams was going to be John Baxter. He was the guru. We were sold he was the best in the country, and they did some good things. They blocked some kicks. I'll give them credit there. They blocked some kicks, but overall, there seemed like someone that gets paid that amount of money, you would expect more production. And I think Chris hits the nail on the head. I think you need better players on special teams. And more importantly to me is that you have the right players receiving punts and returning kickoffs. And the thing that I know, it's just me. I think of a guy like Velus Jones. Now he goes to the combine, and what did he run? A 4.23? And everyone's going, oh, look at that. He ran a 4.23. Well, was he effective as a kickoff returner for SC? To the point where you say if he touches the ball, he's going to take it to the house. I never felt that way. But I think if you get I'm looking at a guy like Rayleigh Brown, that when he comes in for Mater Dei, he's a freshman, but he's electric. Would you dare put a freshman? He's not going to participate in spring ball, by the way. He's going to come in the fall. But would you dare put him as a punt returner? Let's say, who is Lincoln Riley going to have? What changes are going to be on the return game? That fascinates me. Remember, they also have to replace a punter, and I don't think the punter that they think they're going to replace him with, the kid from Australia, is going to be there in the spring. I don't believe so. Mark, do you know, is he going to be there in the spring?
I don't believe Atticus will be there.
No, yeah. And remember what Atticus's last name is? I don't know why I keep thinking
Bertram.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep thinking Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Because it's a really good movie.
Well, I taught it for about 25 years, so I guess I'm stuck with the Finch anytime I see Atticus. But no, I think it'll be something that is not a priority per se in spring, but I think it should be a priority once the fall hits, because you're really getting down to the nitty gritty. So with that in mind, let's move on. It's the fourth quarter now. This I learned thanks to Chris, how to light the torch now.
Okay. Oh, look at that. You can see it.
I know, because I'm giving you the credit, dude. All
You know
right.
what? I don't really want the credit for this thing that you do.
Oh, no, I thought about this, and since you told me you have such a wonderful singing voice, I thought maybe you could sing the song that's always played in the Coliseum when they light the torch. You remember that William Tell's overture, but it has no words. Can you actually do it without the words? Is that something that
You're killing our episode right now, Greg. I'm not gonna hum something for you. I'm not gonna talk about that candle anymore. I'm just gonna wait until the fourth quarter and answer a question. That's what I'm gonna do.
You know what's sad? It's the people that are on the podcast, they can't see it. So it does look like the Coliseum torch at some level. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, they both have.
Would you
fire.
agree with that or not?
No, I don't agree.
Yes
with that.
or no?
They both have fire. That's the only thing that's similar. I like that we're still doing this because it's so odd, but no, it doesn't look like the torch. Nobody's saying, wow, how did Katz go out and fight a candle that looks just like the Coliseum torch? Nobody's saying that.
I personally went through all of Google to try to find out whether they sell a peristyle type of Coliseum background. Like, some of these souvenirs you can get at Farmer's Market or on Hollywood Boulevard. And I said, I should create that.
Be an entrepreneur, Greg. You should do it.
Greg, buy a menorah and start paper macheing it into a peristyle.
Mark, must it always get back to Hanukkah? Really?
I'm just giving you a suggestion.
Next thing you're telling me is who's got the better corned beef sandwich, Canner's or Catella Deli?
Moving on.
All right. So let's get to the fourth quarter question here, guys. All right. If you could sit down for dinner with one former USC football player or coach that is no longer living, who would it be and why? Chris Arledge, who would it be and why?
I'm gonna bring the mood down a little bit with this one, but this is my honest answer. It would be Junior Seau, and because I want to understand what happened and how who knows how many concussions Junior Seau had over the years, dozens at least. But I want to understand what happened. You're talking about a guy that was not only a legendary football player, one of the best ever, but was also he was beloved. I mean, this is a guy who everybody loved, and he had an entire city that loved the guy. And by all accounts, he changed dramatically, personality-wise, over the years. I would like to understand. I mean, when the CTE stuff first started coming out some years ago, and we started to see just how prevalent it was and the impact it was having on people, it started to change how people see this game that we love. And I still love football. I still love the hitting of football. That's what I like most about it. But I'd like to talk to him and understand the changes and how it made him feel and what came about, because I'm just intensely curious about that tragedy and so many others like it. You probably remember there was that article not too long ago about a number of his other teammates on those USC teams in the late 80s who have also died early. So it's a tragedy, and it's something I'd like to understand better.
Okay, Mark, who would you like to sit down and have dinner with and chew the fat?
Yeah, before I lighten the load a little bit, and Chris, you touched on it in your thing. Kevin Ellison, I think, along the same lines. He was laying some big hits, and he left way before his time was ready. So, but on a lighter note, John McKay once said, he was asked, why did he give Ricky Bell the football 52 times or whatever? And he answered, the ball wasn't that heavy. I want to ask Ricky, how heavy was the ball after he carried the ball that many times in a game? Because I have a feeling that his answer probably would have been a little different, just to kind of get the insight. And it's along the same lines of what Chris was talking about. He took a lot of shots, but he was such a great runner, so powerful. And he was the reason, he was probably the first player that really made me go, wow, I want to be a Trojan fan. I loved watching him carry the ball.
Okay, so you're Ricky Bell.
Oh, I'm Ricky Bell all the way.
which is a great transition to Kevin, because Kevin, I think, played with Ricky Bell. Am I right, Kevin?
Yeah, he started off as a inside linebacker, moved to outside linebacker, moved to fullback, and then the tailback. Yeah.
It
And
could have been you, Kevin. Can you imagine if McKay would have moved you to tailback? The whole
yeah,
world would be different.
I'd still be on the special teams. We
So
all have our
Kevin,
we all have our role to
who-
play, and that was not mine, but it was Ricky's. And oh, by the way, the reason he was moved to tailback initially was because we ran out of tailbacks, so they moved the fullback to tailback. True
Wow,
story.
crazy.
Yeah, and by the way, Ricky's answer would be, "Give me the ball."
He still deserved the Heisman on the other hand, too.
He did. I agree. Anyway, so Greg, the question is who to have dinner with and why. I think Chris has really good points about the CTE. Something that I too am most interested in, and regrettably, diagnostically, it's unknowable until it's too late. So with that, as a piece of data, I'm gonna go in the way back machine. I want to talk to Howard Jones. I want to talk to the guy that won the first national championship, the first guy to beat Notre Dame in South Bend, the first guy to put out a 400 to 500,000 person parade in Los Angeles. I'm not sure it's ever happened since, frankly. Maybe one of the Dodger teams, I can't remember. Maybe so. I'd love to hear about what he thought it took to win championships. And I think that'd be fascinating. And then contrast that to what we've heard from other head coaches that we esteem as championship head football coaches at USC. I think it'd be fascinating corollaries there.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I would like to sit down and talk with John McKay. And my reason for talking with John McKay, aside from saying, why did you let me in when I was 17 years old to watch your practice? But I would like to have him tell me what he has been thinking about watching USC from Cardinal and Gold Heaven, about what he's seen transpire this last 10 years, and what he thought should have been changed, what should have been changed, who should have been changed, because I think he definitely would have an opinion on it, and he would not restrict himself from giving that opinion. I think therapeutically for me, I think I would feel good if he agreed with a lot of what I was thinking and writing about at the time, because coming from him, it would be very important because, I agree with Kevin as far as the contribution that Howard Jones made, but then there was that gap, and then finally McKay came and he really propelled to where we are in terms of modern day football. So yes, I'd like to hear what John McKay thinks of Clay Helton and what he thought. I think I know, but you always want to hear it from the person. So it was up to me. I'd sit down and break bread with John McKay. So with that in mind, let's go to overtime. And overtime is what we say for our viewers and listeners. If you'd like to submit a question that we can answer here on Inside the Trojans Huddle, just go to either the Gary P or We Are SC members message boards. From there, you'll see the topic thread regarding questions for Inside the Trojans Huddle. So let's go to today's questions. It's kind of a free-for-all format. I don't feel like I have to pick on somebody to start us off. So whoever thinks they've got an answer, go ahead and we can, talk about it together. So here's the first question from SoCal N8TIV in Bixby Knolls, Long Beach, California. Why isn't USC doing what lawmakers are doing for Ohio State to reinstate their wins taken away by NCAA sanctions? Ohio State cites the NIL changes as part of their case. Can USC file an Chris, you can help me with this, amicus brief to join Ohio State? It's time to fight back and reclaim everything taken in what was a brutal takedown of SC football. Who wants to tackle that one?
What does amicus mean, Chris?
Amicus curiae brief is a friend of the court brief. It's when you join in to a matter that you're not a party to because you want the court to understand your perspective on it. Look, is the question why do California lawmakers not do something about USC's lost Because if that's the question, I guess my answer is, why would we want California lawmakers to do anything?
Thank you.
What we should do is padlock the door in the Capitol in Sacramento and keep it that way for most of the year. That's what we should be doing. So if the question is, do we want them to get involved in pushing USC's case? Probably not. Look, this is something we should have done years ago, and the USC administration failed us miserably. Pat Hayden failed. The former president failed. The board of trustees failed. They failed. They should have dealt with the NCAA before. They didn't want to. I'm not sure we can do much about it now. I do think, though, that we should stop pretending that Reggie's Heisman wasn't won, and we should stop pretending that those games weren't won, because they were. And by the way, Katz, you're an offender on this, because
Gonna get back to me. Everybody in the world knew he's gonna circle back to me, aren't you? So let it all out. Go ahead and attack
I
me.
don't need to let it all out. I'm just saying, when I read your articles and you're using those false numbers because of the Paul D committee, then it makes me unhappy. I want that to stop.
I'll save you, Greg. Look, the last time USC kind of tried to coexist with Ohio State on one of these type of things, Maurice Clarett and Mike Williams were trying to get into the NFL draft early. It didn't work out well. So if it's an Ohio State idea, let's probably do the opposite and just work from there.
Why don't we schedule Ohio State and just beat them? How about that? Screw all this other crap.
There you go.
Well, I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah, just
Well,
put the wins and put the Heisman
lawyer.
Trophy back. Who cares? Just put the trophy back in Heritage Hall and move forward. They already do it subtly anyways. I mean, when the recruits are on campus, they've got the banners and the backdrops with Reggie Bush's number associated with all the other Heisman winners. This is really-
Reggie Bush is probably the Heisman Trophy winner that they're going to recognize. I mean, all due respect to Leinart, it's Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart in that order. So, hey, look, if it helps us in recruiting, then I'm okay with that part of it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I have a different point of view.
Sure, understood.
All right, I will just wrap this question up by saying I still wouldn't give him his Heisman Trophy back in spite of what Arledge thinks. I say the guy, if it was high school ball, he would have got everybody ineligible. He shouldn't have been on the field in the first place. I'm not going to take it any further than that. Anything I have to add, I won't waste anybody's time. I'll put it in writing. But it was a nice try, Chris, as much as I respect your legal perspective on things. So
it wasn't really a legal point of view. And by the way, I don't give legal advice on this program. So don't do what I tell you to do and then sue me for malpractice.
well, we know that we won't do it because you'll charge us $200 or $600 an hour. We know how
at least
probably
more than that. But
you guys don't know what you're saying on that one. That brother Chris, that's just like, for picking up the phone. Geez, get out of here.
All right, let's move on to question number 2 from Gold Trojan. 1, how is Brandon Peely's recovery going? And number 2, Max Gibbs, should he play offense or defense? How is his conditioning looking? Okay, who wants to jump into this one first?
Well, I got a point of view. I have no idea what their conditioning is. Peely's got obviously, pardon the pun, a leg up just because of sheer time, but he's got tremendous injury to recover from. Very difficult for big men to recover on the Achilles front. Hope he does. We need him to be able to play A gap, and asking him to do more than covering the A gaps is a bit much. So we'll just see how that fits. Maximus, I thought really did some developmental work on defense, and actually, made a few plays, did some things that was appropriate. I got a hard time seeing that big fellow making an impact on the offensive line. It's just not, the foot speed isn't there, believe it or not. And certainly the ability to, sustain a 12, 15 play. Well, we don't do 15 play marches, but 12 play, march down the field. I can't see it, frankly.
And just for listeners who aren't familiar with Brandon Peely, defensive lineman, probably many of you would consider a nose guard, nose tackle, head up maybe on the center. Just for those who don't know who Brandon is. Chris, you want to add something?
No, look, Peely does have some athleticism, as we all know. Whether or not he's going to come back and play well this year is anybody's guess. Maximus needs a body transformation. I mean, it's happened before. Kenichi Udeze did it. He lost a ton of weight and became not only productive but fantastic. I don't know that Maximus has that level of talent, but he needs to lose a lot of weight. If he loses a lot of weight, we can see whether the kid can play. If he doesn't lose a lot of weight, then we're never going to know.
Allow Mr. Negativity here to chime in. So Brandon Peely, at the end of last year, was getting back out onto, what we call Rehab Island, getting some workouts in during fall practices. So I'm going to take an assumption that he's out there during winter conditioning with the team right now. In fact, I know he is. And spring camp, he should be close to 100%. Now, whether he's in football shape, that what Kevin was alluding to, we'll find out soon enough. As far as Maximus, he is going to be on the offensive line this year. That's been decided. And he has already gone through that Kenichi Udeze body transformation. By certain reports, he's down to 350 in that range, which is that around a 45 to 50 pound weight loss from what we saw last year. So if that helps him with his foot speed, great. I don't think anybody's looking for him to make an impact this year. There's enough returning talent, experience in front of him that they don't need him to, be the first string. Can he crack the 2 deep is where he should be looking.
Well, I think Gibbs is interesting. SC's had offensive guards that were 350. John Drake was one of them. Deuce Latui, he was another one. Okay, so it's not out of the realm that he's too big in terms of 350. It really is the scheme that they run, what he's going to do. I mean, do we expect he's going to pull out and kick out the backside defensive end? I mean, is he able to do that? But to me, that's what spring ball is going to be all about, seeing what those guys are doing. And I do want to make this point, since we touched on spring ball just slightly. I have purposely kept us from getting into too much of spring ball, because spring ball has been held back for so long that I wanted to get into the specific topics of positioning and competition. A week before spring ball, no more than it's right now you could say we would have been in spring ball maybe with the old regime, but I didn't want to burn that up because it's a great topic, and I know everybody's got an opinion on it. Peely, I think, is intriguing if he's healthy. He knows that if he wants to play in the NFL, this is it for him. He's got to do something. All right, speaking of something, and since we talked about linemen, question 3 from Big Daddy is, what is the best way to start an NIL GoFundMe for Josh Conerly? Only half kidding. Now, Josh Conerly, of course, is the great recruit from Rainier Beach in Seattle, Washington, that SC is going to host at the end of March, who has not signed a letter of intent yet for the class of 2022. So what is your thoughts on, well, I think it's important. I'm gonna start with Chris on this, because I want to hear his opinion. How do you take the NIL and make it appealing for a lineman? Let's just use Josh Conerly. What can you do when you look at Caleb Williams? What would be a fair market value?
Well, that's the wrong question, right? Because the way NIL is being used by certain universities, like the University of Texas, BYU, it's not about fair market value. I mean, that's what's so strange about it. Is it's one thing if what NIL is about is giving guys who actually have some value in the marketplace the ability to capitalize on that. But Texas has a bunch of offensive linemen that nobody's heard of, many of whom aren't even going to play, that are making money. How did they do it? I think what they did is they form a corporation. They make that corporation a nonprofit that's promoting something, not Texas football, even though that's really what it's promoting. And then they sign a bunch of guys to then promote that organization. And the organization is funded primarily by wealthy donors putting a bunch of money into it. I mean, that can be done easily enough. And if that sort of thing is going to fly, then everybody's going to have to start doing it in order to compete. I don't know Josh Connerly. I don't know to what extent his focus is on NIL money rather than other things, rather than staying closer to home so that his family can see him playing more, playing for the right offensive line coach, getting the right type of education. I don't know what the kid wants, but I know what we want. We want a big left tackle who's going to start for 3 years and then go to the NFL as a first round pick. And by all indications, that's the kind of guy he is. So I'd be thrilled to get him.
Anybody else have any comment on this particular question?
It's just to Chris's point, is NIL is a recruiting and retention both tool, and we better, the university has to be smart about it. Well, actually, players have to be smart about it. University doesn't have to be smart about it, but it's important because for many, both potential football stars as well as those that, to Chris's point, are part of a group. It's a way to monetize, their time with the team. I honestly, making it a retention tool, I think, is important as a recruiting tool. You're gonna need both pieces.
Yeah, and in the past, look, the guys who are first round talents are going to leave early almost always, and they should. I don't have a problem with that. In the past, it's those guys who were going to be very late picks or maybe free agent guys who would leave school a year early to go to the NFL because their families needed money. Those are the guys that you can keep around for an extra year now. And it really, it's not up to the school to do that, because I don't think the school is really allowed to engage in these NIL deals. But I think it's certainly possible for Lincoln Riley and others to talk to people who have a lot of money. None of us, people who have real money, and tell them, listen, we need to be able to hold on to these guys that are starters on our football team and keep them from leaving a year early when it's not in their interest to leave a year early, and it's certainly not in ours. And we need to find a way to do that. I suspect Lincoln Riley has thought about that, and that USC is going to be able to pull that off, but we'll see.
Yeah, for me, you either get some inducement as a recruit right up in front, or you do the Travis Dye route and you take advantage of NIL at the back end of your college career. So the transfer portal is going to add a whole nother dynamic to this. So who knows? Yeah, there's just, it's such an uncharted territory right now. So for that question, even the folks who are in charge of NIL at USC, every time you ask them a question, it's like, let me look into that and I'll get back to you. They don't know.
Nobody knows. Look, not only does nobody know the rules, but nobody knows if there's going to be anybody there to enforce the rules. Correct. I think as soon as the NCAA comes down on somebody and that's challenged in court, the NCAA is going to be effectively disbanded. If you read that recent Supreme Court case that was unanimous against the NCAA, and there was a brutal concurrence talking about how the NCAA is an unlawful collusive entity. It's anti-competitive, and I don't think the NCAA can survive a challenge. So without having clear rules or anybody who can enforce them, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to know what you can do. I think what the answer is, as schools like Texas and BYU and maybe Texas A&M have been figuring out, the answer is do whatever you can right now until somebody stops you. I think that's probably the right answer, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I just don't step over the wrong line, and we don't know what the lines are. So you got to get lucky, and there it is, and you're right. And right now, write checks, keep player, or get player. Simple.
I'll leave this question with this. I think that schools like Texas and Alabama and some of the others for linemen, they will force USC to compete. And USC will see what they're doing, and they're going to have to match it. How they match it, I don't know. And it's like you said, there's no rules in place, no guardrails, until somebody says you don't do that. But SC's going to have, for like a guy like Connerly, and seeing who he's still got going. When SC has to compete against Oregon, what is Oregon telling him? So it's going to be a bidding process, whether I like it or not, but they're going to set the mark. And maybe not SC is going to set the mark when it comes to linemen, but SC is going to catch on real quick about what they should do. All right, question 4 from Trojan Senji and Western Pacific Ocean. What do you think the staff will do with our O-line next year? I assume that means after next year is over. 4, if not all starters, will be gone next year. Even if we get Josh Connerly, it's still a huge hole in my opinion. And how many O-linemen do we sign in the class of 2023, including transfers? Okay, who's got their hand up first?
Transfer portal is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Connerly may be able to come in and start as a true freshman. Some guys can. Winston Justice did, and Tyron Smith did. I mean, it happens, but you're not going to find 4 guys who can do that. And so what's going to happen is you're going to sign as many high school guys as you can, and then you're going to go out and pull in 2 or 3 guys from the transfer portal. And Lincoln Riley has all year to make that happen. So you can be sure that in 2023, USC will have some starters that were starters on other on other offensive lines the year before.
Well, there's that. And, USC didn't invest in, Josh Henson to kind of develop some of the youth that they already have in the trenches. So hopefully they can get maybe 2 or 3 out of the 2020 class and get those guys ready to play. I mean, you're talking about, having Jonah Monheim around, potentially having Cortland Ford around, who now, everyone wanted a coaching upgrade, who I thought Clay McGuire did a fantastic job last year. Well, they went out and got a true SEC guy. But let's see how much coaching is really involved now. And then, like you said, there's always a transfer portal.
I would chime in by saying if SC can get Connolly, if USC gets Francis Maui-Goa from IMG Academy the following year, this is really critical to me because this has momentum. This is 2 5-star guys that we haven't seen, 2 5-star guys in, together back to back in quite some time. If they can get that momentum going, that they can show other 5- and 4-star linemen immediately for the class of 2022, 2023, I think they're well on their way to restocking the SC type of offense that we all expect. But it's critical if they can get Connolly. It'd be a setback if they don't get him. I really feel good about Maui-Goa. There's a lot of reasons why he wants to come to SC. I know that the on-3 predictor has got him heavily favored for USC. I know that Connolly is a slight favorite and the on-3 predictor of where he's going to go. So if we can get that type of momentum going and add a few transfers along the way, I think SC will be in good shape. I think scheme is going to have to do with it. Chris, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, look, don't forget, it's going to be much easier to recruit offensive linemen when USC is actually running something other than the Mickey Mouse offense they've been running the last few years. Why would you want to come play offensive line at a school that has 4 plays, 3.8 of those 4 passing plays, and you never get to come off the ball and hit somebody? I mean, why would you want to play offensive line there? I mean, for all this time, we've been focused on how the offensive line classes have been lousy, and I'm thinking, of course, why would you want to play offensive line for Graham Harrell and Clay Helton? Those guys are terrible. That offense is terrible. It's a joke. Now that you have a guy who is legitimately one of the best offensive minds in football, whose teams do run the ball, you have a legitimate offensive line coach who's been good everywhere he's been. I think it's going to be much easier to bring in the big guys.
Yeah, and just to that point, I won't go into the numbers, but a lot of plays and a lot of different blocking schemes have already been installed that they'll be ready to use when spring camp opens. And you're going to see some maybe interesting jumbo packages in goal line situations when you get to see them. Some players may be playing in different positions that you're not accustomed to. So they're already doing some experimentation.
Yeah. Well, regrettably, a lot of teams use jumbo packages in the goal line. It was just us. And Parrish have thought that we should put somebody under center. I think we'll see that too.
All right. Well, this takes us. Mark, did you want to add something there?
No. I think we're all in agreement.
All right, final question, kind of takes its full cycle here, which is interesting. It's from SC the One. SC the One asks, does it bother the panel as much as it bothers me that Lincoln Riley's administration appears to be so guarded with information, announcements about the support staff, to spring practice and the spring game dates, to access at practices, etc.? Maybe we don't get to see behind the curtain for how things will be run and should just accept the results, which are sure to be an improvement. I hope that the media will still be able to get practice updates, at least through a spokesperson, if they're not allowed to witness for themselves. That seemed to be the case at OU, meaning Oklahoma. So I can understand that that is what they are used to, but this is LA, and not all the best practices were birthed in Norman, Oklahoma. There are some things that were done here that should be taken under consideration and blended into the new SC culture. All right, jump into that one. It's our final question.
Yeah, we touched on it at the top of the show, obviously, with spring camp. So, look, I think the compromise is this is LA. It's different than Norman. The media hopefully will get access to the beginning of practice. They'll kick us out. Greg, you know the routine. They kick us out and they come back in, do your interviews. If that's the access we get, I'm cool with that. It's better than nothing. Yeah, and again, it's to the point that Los Angeles is a different marketplace. You have to have more information available, more, I hate to use the word transparency, but allow the media to see, because there's other alternatives. The fans will choose to go somewhere else. We have a short attention span out here. In Norman, Oklahoma, they've got football and gold being sold in Ardmore. So that's it.
Hey, don't knock it. You can get some good deals.
I'm thinking about it, man. I'm thinking about heading out there.
Look, would I like to get more information rather than less? I would. It doesn't matter. Lincoln Riley has to win a lot of football games. And if he does that, everybody's going to be happy, including our We Are SC reader who asked the question. That's what it amounts to. He has to win football games. And he's going to get a pretty long leash to do whatever it is he thinks he needs to do in order to win those games, as he should. You bring a guy over, you pay him $12 million a year, and you give him a private jet, if the rumors are to be believed, then that guy knows he has to produce. And if he's winning 11, 12 games a year, I don't care whether Kulkin gets to see the practices or not. I'd like to read a report if I can, but if I can't, I don't care. I want to see a product on Saturdays that isn't embarrassing. And it's been a long time since we've been able to see a product on Saturdays that isn't embarrassing. That's all I really care about. I think that's all most USC fans care about. And I don't care how much access you give during practices. If USC wins 7 games, nobody cares. And I don't care how little access you give during practice. If USC wins 12 games, a lot of people are going to care. That's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, and I'd point out, and I fully agree. Look, it's about winning football games. However you get there, you get there. Head coaches, Riley, and there it is. So, get over it. However, he's got to win football games. He knows it. Not a surprise. So off to the races in that regard. The other thing, too, I'd point out is while we all would like to know more, I'm not sure the information that we're going to extract from watching various components of the practice during the week really gives us a lot of does not give us a lot of information about what we're going to see on Saturday, right? Matter of fact, I'd tell you that it is almost impossible to predict what Saturday is going to bring with 2 evenly matched teams by watching practice during the week. Some of the best practices in the world but end up with some of the worst outcomes on Saturday than you could imagine at USC.
Yeah. And the players have no idea. I'll tell you right now, the players are always going to be optimistic about how they and their buddies are going to perform. It doesn't matter what they think. I remember in college thinking, man, I really like the way this defense is coming together. I think there's going to be a big improvement this year. And then we went out and gave up 40 in the first half of the opener. The players don't know. Nobody knows. We'll know when we get to September and October.
I think the dynamic to watch for is if it goes from tight ship to, oh, we're winning, let's invite the media in and relish in our victories now, to all of a sudden to that point of, do they go from one extreme to, all right, hey, come on in and let's talk about it. I think they should stay consistent. Either
we can cover that one on a later broadcast, right? But you know what, I would like to have that problem where, you know, we won a lot of football games and there's some discussion about, you know, how we treat the media, which is really what this question is all about. This is about how the media gets treated. It's not about how mom and dad get treated, because that was a team vote. Team doesn't vote on the media.
correct.
Well, I'm going to take a different perspective than my esteemed colleagues. You know, I coached and I write and I've been a fan. So when I write, I always say, what would a fan want to know? Because I represent the people that read about SC. When I coach, I like to see for myself, not this, I mean, I can see who's a good coach and who's not. Really, coaching is about teaching. So I go, who's a good teacher? Who explains it so the players not only know what they're doing, but they're motivated to do it. And when people say to me, if I'm on a radio show and they say, well, what's wrong with the SC offensive line? The simple answer is, well, you saw in games that, you know, they don't block, they don't blow anybody off. But why? You know, sometimes I will tell this to the fans. I don't think there's any question. I bet you 80% of what I know, I don't write about. Okay. Otherwise, I won't be able to see. But when something happens and I have to write a story about, well, let's just say Neil Callaway gets fired as offensive line coach. Why did he get fired? Was it just because the offensive line didn't do well? Well, when I write a story, that's when I take that other 80% and I open it up to say he was very abusive. He was very difficult. Like his mind really wasn't into it. All the intangibles that I think make a good coach. Plus, you know, everybody sits in the stands and they watch a guy and they go, well, how come he's not playing? Well, how come he's not playing? He should be playing. Well, when you watch a guy's attitude in practice, you could see who's slacking off. I mean,
True.
let's face it. These are all the things that when I see, even if I'm not writing about it, I think Mark, will probably attest to it. There are so many things that you get, and I hate to say it because I know the administration of USC watches our show. Look at parents talk to us. They give us information. Mark just didn't get that email sent to him directly. Somebody gave him that information, which I greatly appreciate, so that we can be more accurate. But there's so many things that happen when you watch practice, even injuries, even if we can't report it, you know, like Mark said, you know, Rehab Island, who didn't practice during the week? Why is he dropping balls in a game? Well, maybe he didn't practice during the week. And that's the stuff that you add when you're analyzing a game and you're taking a look at it. So the idea is, being at practice tells you so much. And besides that, you see what recruits are there. You see what the attitudes are there. Even things, I know Mark likes doing this because I did it when I covered the practices. Okay, Mike Garrett was there. Marcus Allen was there. People do like that stuff. They, you know, that's part of the fan wants to know. So I'll conclude it by saying, I think it's important that we're there even when they're practicing. I mean, I agree with all of you, what you said. You know, I want to see what the new scheme is like. I don't want to have to wait till spring game and go, oh, really? That's what they're doing? My thing to the fans right now, and I'll conclude it with this. You want to know what SC is going to do? Watch some Oklahoma film from last year. You're going to get a good idea of what SC is going to do, from the running game to how they do their sets. And that, you want to know what Caleb Williams is going to look like? Watch the Oklahoma stuff. Mark, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, just to wrap it up, ultimately, it's going to be up to us in the media to earn their trust, to allow them to invite us in as a 17-year-old Greg Katz and hang out and, you know, just observe and know what to say and what not to say and when to say it. That's all.
And you know what?
I'm glad you brought up the mystery of why Callaway got fired as offensive line coach, because I'm still trying to figure that out. That seemed really unjust to me.
I don't know if you're being facetious or not.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, he was. Let me help you with that one.
All right, wait a minute. In fairness, let's take a vote. All those that think that he's being facetious, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yay.
All right, so it's unanimous. So I'll leave it with this. I don't think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think Lincoln Riley will say, I wanted Oklahoma the way I'm doing it. I'm not doing it any differently at USC, even though it's LA. And I'll go by what I'll agree with Chris.
Here's where I would disagree.
Good.
I'm not here. Here's what I would say. I think Lincoln Riley will adopt his coaching approach and his style to the needs of the team and to the extent that the university has its own elements that are different than OU, then you'll see some changes in that regard as well, with its own traditions and differences from university to university. And to the extent that he takes into consideration the media market in Southern California, frankly, that's up to him. I think he discards it if it doesn't lead to winning football games.
And most coaches don't think that opening up practices wins football games, which is why most coaches around the country don't do it.
All right. And on that note, we'd like to thank our panel. And a reminder, if you have questions for our panel, go to either of the We Are SC message boards, click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle. For viewers or listener questions, you guys are all out there in media land in terms of asking questions. Greatly appreciate it. So that wraps up this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Big thank you to this week's panel, great Marc Kulkin, the great Chris Arledge, and the great Kevin Bruce. And a big thank you to all of you for watching or listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. So next Tuesday, this is your host, Greg Katz, reminding you all to fight on, everybody.